Welcome to 2 Month Review, the weekly podcast where we take a giant book, in this case, Ed Park's Same Bed, Different Dreams, chop it up like a piece of wood, take each one of those little parcels, toss it into the fire, see how it burns, evaluate that fire, get warmed by its intellectual flame, and then talk about it here on this podcast. I'm Chad Post of Open Letter Books, joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox. Hey, Brian.
Morning, Chad. Is this like NyQuil or whiskey? What's going on?
You told me you want to do intros, so I've been doing intros the past 2 weeks.
Hey, I agree. I didn't think we were going to do a burning book metaphor, but sure, let's burn some books. We might as well start with the. I don't know. It feels like really racist to. If we're going to start burning books, let's start with like fuck Korea. Like what the hell, dude?
I'm just thinking about burning stuff because we're here in Wisconsin and I've been chopping wood, like chopping it. It's super fun. I've been
begging to do some Ayn Rand on this.
Yeah.
On this couldn't we start with that if we're going to do the book burning?
We did a new tradition sort of for buying books that you have not read for other people. So Chloe's like, I don't know, like I want a book that I want to pick out myself. I don't want you to pick out a book. And I thought about getting her the Fountainhead and be like, you have to read this.
It'll change your life. You have to read this.
You will never see things the same way again.
I know I've asked before. Have you read The Fountainhead?
I actually have. I read that in college. Like,
yeah.
When I first heard of who she was and like had objections to her, I read that over like a semester in college. But I don't really remember shit. And like, it didn't have any impact on me. I thought it was boring. And like, it really was just reading it to be like, I know what this is, so I can make fun of it sort of thing.
No, I feel the same way about like Mein Kampf. I'm afraid I might like it, so I don't want to read it, you know. Trust me, change your life, you know.
You know
what? I like my life. I'm good. And I don't want it changed at all. So I'm good. Thanks. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. We've talked about this before, but there's a huge chunk of Mein Kampf in the 6th volume of My Struggle by Knausgaard. So I've read Mein Kampf and read him reading Mein Kampf in that book.
Okay. Is there anything that's like, I don't know, controversial like that's come out recently? Like what's the book that gets like passed around? Like you got to, like for me, it wasn't even controversial, but I remember like everybody talking about like Fight Club, wanting to read Fight Club, and like, oh my God, you got to check this out. And then they find out it's written by someone who's gay. And it's like, oh my God, it's written and the author's gay. It's incredible. You have to check it. Like, okay, all right. Like that was like always going around the late 90s, like with rave culture kind of stuff. And obviously the movie helps too. But I'm trying to think if there's something now, like what would be passed around on college campus where it's like, this will change your life book.
I'm not sure, but I think that the one like Last Exit to Brooklyn or Train Spotting were ones like that back when. But nowadays, I don't know that there is. None of the students talk about anything that's like that. They'll talk about like YA books, but nothing. I don't know if there must be, but I don't know what it would be. It's not going to be new.
It wasn't life changing, but like Bluets was getting passed around.
Right. Yeah.
Like 10 years ago. Was it like what, 10 years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago? And like, oh my God, I gotta read this. Like, this is like incredible. Like, I remember reading like, yeah, it's like it's a relationship with a trans person. I go, okay. Like,
yeah,
like, it's good. Like, but it didn't, I don't know. Like,
oh, you know what would have been for a time would have been the Ta-Nehisi Coates book.
Oh yeah, my mom even read that. Yeah,
absolutely was one that like people like, this will change your life. This will change the way that you think about and see things. It's slightly different than what you're talking about in terms of like aesthetics. Like Fight Club, the book, I don't know, man, but like I never read that. But the movie, everyone has such a boner for like its tricksiness, and I always thought it was like too cute by half. It's a little bit like I went and saw Poor Things, which, you know, obviously. This is not to be broadcast live on a YouTube stream or a podcasting service, but Delkey Archive reissued Poor Things back when I was there the first time. There's even like the contract is addressed to me and is signed. I didn't sign it, but all the email correspondence about the contract and all of it is addressed to me from like 2004. And then we were reissuing it now to tie into the movie, got the whole book relaid out, redesigned, retypeset, proved, scanned, everything done. And then it turned out that John never re-signed the renewal. So we didn't and they wouldn't sell us the rights. Like they wouldn't renew the rights at that point. And so there exists, I believe, 19 copies of the Delkey version of that book, which are in the storage shed in Rochester, totally not for sale, just sitting there in case in case I go a little rogue and start selling shit on eBay. I'm gonna run it through like a bunch of like fake Korean servers. I'll have the Lazarus group figure out how to sell those books for people.
Yeah, some gloat subsidiary will have to figure that out.
Yeah, that movie is okay. I don't like it as much as everyone else seems to like it, but I don't really like movies that much.
I don't like to judge things by the trailer unless it's like a Wes Anderson film, and then I totally can. But it feels a little precious.
Feels a lot. There's a lot of preciousness in the set design and the shots. I do have a story about this though that is super funny. Is that I went to see it on whatever Christmas Eve, right? And it was playing here in Minneapolis at the Alamo Draft House, like the famous Alamo Draft House, been franchised. You can get, there's a full service bar, menu at your seat, so on and so forth. And to buy the ticket online, what it would not let me do is buy a ticket by myself. There's like almost no seats taken in the theater, like maybe 6, but it would not let me buy a seat that was like on its own. It had to be like next to an occupied seat, or like on the far end of the aisle. So I was like, I don't know what the fuck this is. So I bought one right in the middle of the front.
Like an airline algorithm. You want to make sure everything's oversold, for the people that just want to come to the movie.
Like, so I go into this movie theater, right? Like I just says, dude, go to this movie theater and go to the seat. And it's at a table with this young woman next to me, who's probably like in her early 30s. There are 5 people in this theater. There are seats everywhere. But to my left, one seat over, is this younger woman, probably in her 20s. And to my right, sharing a table with me, is this woman in her 30s, probably came on her own to just be like, I'm going to come watch this movie. And suddenly, next thing she knows, this like creepy old dude is sharing a table with her, watching Emma Stone's boobies on screen for 2.5 hours. I was like, I didn't know what to do. I was like, should I try and move? But they had you, like, they gave you your credit card. It was all tied to like that seat location to buy stuff. I was like, I don't know. Do I move? Do I say something? I just decided to ignore the entire situation and said 0 words to this woman at all. Just nothing. Just ignored her straight outright.
I thought of I just like awkward situations and amplifying them. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm thinking a great way to amplify that, if I were to like fictionalize it, would you lean over when there's Emma Stone nudity, and you'd be like, hey, there's an oral sex scene in the Curse. Have you seen that? Oh, it's so good. Hey, Steve. This is why I don't go to movies. This is why I don't talk to people.
she got both of them got unlimited popcorn bowls, and I was almost like, can I just have a bit of that? Like, I thought that was the one time she set it down on the table, and I was just like, oh, I don't want to reach my hand in there. That's not cool.
Bring a plastic bag of your own popcorn in your coat.
Yeah.
First time.
Don't worry, I've got my own.
What is this, your first time?
My mom made me trail mix. Little that would be awesome.
Oh,
man, you mentioned the Curse. The Curse, I could go on and on and on about the Curse.
Well, we're talking about the Curse of Korea being between Japan and China instead.
Yeah, it's a little different bit of a curse, but somewhat of a curse nonetheless. So today, right, I don't know if you missed last week because you were sick. If anyone listens to that podcast, like, woo! If you get to the Andrew Merritt part, because my voice was gone and barely could make it through that at all with like a fever dream. So we talked a bit about like the Laos sex toy. We talked about the game. I sort of skipped over the Parker Jotter section though, with the letters and him recovering from the attack, because I was like, that was when I was like truly starting to fall asleep. and pass out. But if you have anything to add from like last week's section of things that stood out to you, like let's start there.
I think what I would add is just the way now. I think we can kind of see the seams of the way things are starting to come together, and it's almost as if like the stitching is starting to tighten up those seams, and we're starting to see everything kind of like patched together at this point in the book. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like the
goes in the cycles and the circles. You're seeing like the assassinations. You're seeing everything kind of coming together.
Right, and the Perker, that one was, that last week was a fun one because it was the 2:23:33 sections.
Well, we talked about the daughter and the game, and we're seeing the book turn into a game, and then so it's kind of like, yeah, we're starting to get a glimpse of how it all fits together.
And he's in the hospital wild wording with his like journal, so on and so forth. It's super fun.
So like when I was sick and bored or whatever, I rewatched Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon.
Oh
wow. Great film, but it does one of those things where like it has an opening scene that basically captures what the next 2+ hours is going to be.
Right.
And it's Barry sitting, it's like the younger version of him. He's sitting playing cards. He's playing a game with a woman, I believe it's his cousin, and she wants him to make a pass at her, and he's just refuses. Like he's just a dumb child. And she's like making advances. He's like, I'll tell you what, Barry, I'm gonna hide my scarf and you have to find it with your hands. Okay, I'll make it very easy for you. Close your eyes. And she takes her scarf, like the silk, out of her hair, and she tucks it into her bosom, and it's like spilling out of her corset at this point. She goes, open your eyes, Barry. And she like looks down and she was like, find it, Barry. And he's like, I can't. Right, like I won't. But like, and then like that's the opening scene. It's like it's very sensual, it's funny, but it's like it's a child. Games are being played, and there's things that can happen if you play these games, and so the rest of it is and I feel like we're kind of with Ed's book, I get that same sense of thinking back on it now, like all these little scenes that we're getting are like this. Here's a small example, real time, of the games we're playing, and you'll understand the rules as we go along, and
right.
Of it, and it's really smart, really fun, like a great way to introduce things, and it gave me that same feeling.
Absolutely, that makes total sense. Yeah. So with this week's section, we're up to page 256. We're like exactly halfway through the book, and we have two sections that took place. One is the part of the sin section, still September, the asterisk, and then a dream 3, 1884 through 1965 for the KPG history, and that one's like broad and a lot. So let's maybe start with the easier bit, which is the asterisk or the sin section. And the main thing in here, aside from like our character Soon has like been reading the dreams, thinking about the book, the KPG, he's looking stuff up, finding that a lot of it seems to be factual and historical, that Echo's written, but like some of it he can't find. There's not a lot of information about the KPG online. He's not seeing things on Gloat. And then his friend comes and gets hired at Gloat. Talks a little bit about his history there. And then his friend Loa Ding gets hired because Gloat buys Slanted plus Enchanted, her magazine, and they're going to like incorporate that into some sort of Gloat event, or what do we call it, like vertical or something. But that's basically, and then he finds Dream 3. They're in like their little hidden space that he shows her where none of the electronics work. You're sort of like off the grid within the middle of their like starfish shaped strange, office building, very Apple sounding or whatever. And they find Sprout, who had been missing, the dog, and he has Dream 3 in his mouth. I don't know if there's anything else from that section. It's really just there to kind of move along to get Dream 3, seemingly.
Yeah, it feels very, like, for lack of a better word, expositional.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's still like funny. And it still has kind of, you know, Ed's humor and whimsy in it, and his racial humor is like so spot on and great in this. It's really, like, I hate to say it's delightful, but like it's I don't know. I love I love the way he's like juxtaposing the levity with like the harshness of what it takes, like what the KPG went through, what the people went through, all that sorrow, all that pain, and then on the surface level stuff, we get like this like laughter. I don't know, like these first world problems and this laughter, and then beneath it is like the start of how things began in Korea. It was really, I love the way that goes back and forth. It works so well.
Yeah, it really does. Like this part, one of the main parts in here is their security man Otto, who keeps calling him Bruce after Bruce Lee. He's like calls him Bruce Lee, and then he's playing the game, the Hegemon game, and Soon's like, "Are you close to putting together the tan gun?" I said, like, wanting to know. He gave me a look of pain and longing. Not even close, Bruce. Which is very funny. There's also the good line about the LGBTQ Omega Alliance. And he's like, I was getting old. I didn't even know what the Omega stood for. It would have been too gauche to ask. Which feels nice sort of like reference to people in our generation that don't necessarily know all the things.
I'm the type I have to go to like Urban Dictionary half the time to understand any of the references in my students' papers anymore.
And then I just end up having like lots of weird sex knowledge. Urban Dictionary, like, just shit that you should not know. But yep. Yeah. And so she's like,
do you think the tan gun is is like a play on the gun that shot Ito and the assassin?
Yeah.
Right, his name. Like you smashed his name together, you get tan.
That's true.
Thomas on, right?
Huh, I hadn't thought of that. I just thought the gun is always like there as like there's so many assassinations and so many pistols.
That's very prevalent, right? Like there's some of those like echoes that keep reoccurring. But I thought if you take Thomas on and kind of like smash it, it's like tan.
Yeah, that's true. There Speaking of guns, you saw that the guy that invented the Glock died.
No, oh no. Yes. I don't like anybody. I didn't see that. But.
Yeah, Mr. Glock. I forget what his first name was, but whatever it was, he passed away. Captain Glock.
Yeah, that'd be a great like superhero name. Like he'd be like a friend. He'd be like a friend of like Peacemaker or something, right? Captain Glock.
Oh yeah, right on. Captain Glock over here.
Always espousing the beauty of the Glock. You know what the great thing about the Glock is? No, I don't want to know. Like, I'm good. I'm fine.
No more facts about the Glock, buddy. You had your moment.
Tank is still going to shoot. Dig it in mud, bury it, get it up the next day. You can still depend on it. Much more than my ex-wife, bitch. Captain Clock, nobody cares about your past relationships and your stupid guns.
Get out of here, Captain Clock. How many like song lyrics do you think reference Glocks?
I don't know. That'd be good. That's an AI question that I'm sure you could have answered.
Oh yeah, that's true. I probably can. So yeah, so that section just really does move us a bit. I mean, it brings back the slanted plus enchanted, which leads into the music that we'll use for this podcast this week, obviously, from the Pavement reference, and especially because on Slanted and Enchanted is the song Two States about California wanting two states. So kind of perfect for this Korea section, which we do then get kind of to the division of Korea almost in our Dream 3, which is 1884 through 1965. And I guess we really do get to the division, but this is one. These are getting wilder to me. So, and they're hard for me to follow and on some level. The first ones are so kind of condensed to a couple storylines. Like the years are a little bit more close together. So the bands aren't that large. The second one, Dream 2, is like 1901 to 1909. Here we have this huge range and all these people. And I'm always having to remind myself of which character is which, or which historical figure is which historical figure for what they did. but this one seems to center. It does center mostly around Bay. What's her initial last name? Who is super complicated. And correct me if I get this right. So, she takes. What was her first name? Is Bay something with a B as well?
Bunham? Bay Bunham.
Yeah, there it is, Bunham. Okay, so tell me if I got this right. So Ito adopts her, but basically she's his mistress, concubine, whatever. In his working with him while he's in Japan, but ruling Korea, then ends up in King Ko Young's cabinet or in his space because she gets exiled, right? I forget why she leaves. Maybe she's sent there. She goes to Seoul to act as a translator for King Kojang. Her translations are inaccurate because she doesn't think he deserves the whole story. Then she helps get his wife, Queen Min, murdered. So she's working against Korea for Japan, goes back to Japan, is also then integral. I think I'm skipping some stuff here, but then is integral in helping get Thomas on. She infiltrates the whole circle of the Nine Finger Club, gets Thomas on to the right place, warns Ito, and then also makes sure that Ito is murdered, and then claims that she's been working for the KPG the whole time with Yi Song, who she brought to Japan to start to enact a revolution. So she's playing all sides. She's like Black Widow of like the Korean Japanese universe at this time, right?
Kind of. Let's see. Page 253 does it pretty succinctly here.
Oh, perfect.
That she grew up Bae Bunam, daughter of an officer of the old Korean court. That she was the one who lured Prince Ito to Harbin in the first place back in 1909 to put him in the path of Thomas On's gun. Is this just a doddering account of a crone? Her confusing saga involves a cipher, a playing card, any number of pistols. She insists the story is true. There's more, she claims. Beginning in 1919, she secretly worked for the KPG. She was so deep undercover that only one officer knew of her position, Yi Sang the Strange.
Right. Okay. So yeah. So she's on both sides. She's integral to getting Ito shot. She helps, like, she's the one who sends the cipher, the card that tips him off, all that kind of stuff. And she is part of both, playing kind of both sides against the middle for a time here.
Is this like a reference at all, you think, to the original? Remember the Manchurian Candidate with Frank Sinatra?
Oh, yeah.
With the Korean War. He comes back from the Korean War. They use playing cards to turn him into an assassin.
Right.
You remember
like what happened to Suran? Yeah,
which was also referenced in
yeah
in this work. Look at that! Oh my gosh, it's all coming around.
She I don't think is a real person. I don't find anything online of her really existing.
But yes, it reminded me cinematically of the original Manchurian Candidate.
Yeah, that's true. Although she's like sort of directing things though too, right? Whereas in that, it's like the operative, or they get the they get the cards and then act off of them, are triggered.
Yeah, it's like a trigger
turned on.
Because there's that famous scene where like she dresses up as like the Queen of Hearts or something like that, like a Playboy bunny outfit with a Queen of Hearts, and that's what like. I'm trying to remember. I watched it about 30 years ago, so.
Dude, I mean, literally, yeah.
We're probably about the age. Like, I don't know if many people too much younger than us are watching 1960s weird spy cinema. Also, we're probably one of the last. Did you have to actually do a typing class on a typewriter?
Oh yeah, 100%. That's how I can type so fast.
I remember those exact kind of books that flip up, and you'd have to go through the exercise one, home row. That man, that brought back memories. That part of this.
I loved typing class. Honestly, I thought it was super fun. I was pretty good at it, and I'm pretty fast at it. But like the sound of it, with like everyone clacking away and the sort of like ding, it's like really like relaxing in a way. It's got a bit of that like newsroomy vibe where everyone's like clacking and like doing work. That's
when the news was good. It was just white men smoking cigarettes with a bunch of typewriters and hats. They had hats, you know.
Yeah.
You know, that was the news.
They had a good old crime desk where some plucky reporter would solve some mystery, some serial killer murder. That's when serial killers sent their messages to newspapers too. Now they just don't even give a fuck.
Yeah, and the women were just there for harassment.
Harassment and the social columns, the gossip.
No, that took me back. I was like, oh man, I remember having typing class.
Yeah. So it's Ree that learns how to type in here, right?
Yeah.
And Syngman Rhee, and he learns how his son passes away tragically. He learns how to typing, going through all these different like the lessons that you get for a typing class, and then it ends with like a long sort of poem of sort. And here comes your Manchurian Candidate again. So it's a long bit about like, years ago you heard the faint whispers of impending trouble. It was so far away, seemed as if it might be on Mars or some other planet. Later you saw columns of smoke rising at a distance, and it's like interstitially has like a different voice of who is the you that he writes about, that he scolds. And it goes on, can you still say, quote, let the Koreans, the Manchurians, and the Chinese fight their own fight? Is it none of your business? Who is the you? And then it ends at the end with the you. Well, this is a paragraph worth reading, I suppose. I cannot persuade myself to see how you can escape clashing with the bully while making it stronger all the time. It is not clear that when he becomes powerful enough to tackle you, he will surely attack you as he's already attacked and robbed every one of his weaker neighbors. The you is the USA. And then talks about entering World War II that December. We also have Kim Il-sung coming back from exile to Korea, which will lead to the Korean War and the split between North and South Korea, and all that part comes to bear right here too.
Yeah, I think you can really feel with this section and the one before, the momentum is really starting to kind of like, I don't know. I feel like the machine's humming and the momentum's going now.
I have that too. Although I also have the point in this section in particular when I was reading it that there's these disparate parts. There's a Thomas An, there's Syngman Rhee, there's OK Kim, the writer. There's Philip Jae-song, who Americanizes his name. There's one more part with, is it Syngman Rhee or Syngman Rhee, who meets the woman in Vienna. Wherever he meets her, and they're gonna get married. She like is partially Italian, is white. Then there's Bae, and there's all those different, and Yi Song are saying, and these are ones where like all these different disparate people are all doing these things. And earlier on, it seemed almost like it was more plotted, like there was more of a conspiracy. And this one feels like, to me, like the threads of the conspiracy are loosened. Like rather than that direct tie of like they all do cut off their finger, they all do like are part of this Korean provisional government, so to speak. But the idea of it being like a really tightly woven set of plans for what the KBG does feels like much less the case in this section to me. It feels a lot more like these players are out on these different places, and all these kind of circumstances lead them to these situations, but that they're not orchestrated through like one central committee.
Mm-hmm. Yes. The other parts, the way this dream differentiated itself from the others, you had mentioned before, like it's a larger chunk of time.
Yeah.
But it has this generational feel to it with a parent and child and lines being crossed out, almost like when you get to like when you're reading like Genesis proto history, and like after Babel, you start getting like genealogies of people, and it sets up the Abraham saga. Like it reminds me, it has that feeling of like, yeah, like it expands a lot of time, but it's showing generations. It's showing the end of someone's name, the start of another, like, and it ends almost with like everybody dying in their old age. So I thought that was a really something that jumped out to me about this section as well.
And it does manage to help shift the the purpose of the KBG a little bit, in that for a while they're like, we got to escape from Japan's rule, which is really like the key that Korea doesn't want to be. Korea wants to be independent, wants to be not taken over by Japan. The warning against the USA is like, you can't just keep feeding Japan because they're gonna like try and get you and come at you, which is obviously ends up being the case. And then now, instead of it being about a common enemy of Japan, they end up at the Korean War, and the two states are created. And so the KPG maybe switches from being a organization that's anti-Japanese and pro-Korean independence to pro-Korea as one nation again.
Yep. A dying dream, the only dream.
Based on all these like world historical events, like they're under rule and then divided for like so long.
Yeah, the one thing I'm curious to see how it ties in is with the present. With which I kind of like take as our main protagonist and our main vehicle for the piece, because like I can see how the 2333 with like, I don't know, like old worlds and new worlds, and like history and new history, and trying like the people being exiled and finding new lands and then wanting to come back, and right, like I can see that, and I can see how that ties in with like with speculative fiction and with science fiction and with the way that's moving. And I'm just curious now with Slow Press and with Gloat and with discovering this manuscript, how that all that's maybe the fun discovery that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, the 2333 also seems to be part of like the code aspect.
Yeah. And the games and the daughters doing the 3D printing of pieces, and like I can start seeing like, maybe is this going to be part of how it all comes together, how it all connects, how it all
And Parker Daughter is in the Korean War, sees his UFO there, comes in contact with the KPG possibly. So there's like that thread of like, then brings that back and starts writing these things that they steal. That was like one of the fun sections with last week, was the bit about the like making the game and then going to the dowager's apartment and having it taken and it just being gone out in the wind. But we were talking about this, is that you can't just make a game out of a book. You need to like acquire the rights to that process. You can't just be like, oh, guess what?
It was funny because I actually watched a whole documentary on the birth of Dungeons and Dragons, and like this small little Wisconsin suburb, and this little white house, and just nerds in the basement.
Nerds in the basement.
Writing down in it was like a composition book, right? And then
what was that guy's name? Gary. It's like with a G and an X is involved.
I just remember around the time that documentary came out. I think it was Sam. How do you say his name? Sam Lipsett.
Oh yeah, Lipsett.
He had a short story that was anthologized in Best American Short Fiction. It was called Dungeon Master, if I recall, about a dungeon master that kills himself and like what legacy he leaves behind.
That's like,
and that informed my story that's in my story collection called USS Flag, actually.
Right.
So there's how the sausage is made.
There we go. The guy I was thinking of is Gary Gygax, G-Y. I don't know. Everyone listening to this knows how to pronounce this, but that's the guy that came up with Dungeons and Dragons. But there is a famous Dungeons and Dragons story that you remind me of with Sam's story about Michigan State, where there was a kid who was way into Dungeons and Dragons, and he and his friends would like at times, I think, act out or like have like, the real life role playing sort of vibe to it. And he went missing. And there's the belief that he went into the tunnel system that connected all of Michigan State's campus and set up traps, and it killed himself in the middle of it. And if you try to find him, you were going to like get fucked by like this dungeon sequence of stuff. And so they closed it all off, and it's all closed off still to this day. But they found him in Florida. He just ran away.
Oh, I think you're describing the plot of the Goonies.
Yeah, I know, but it's been used, like the story is used in these other movies and it's been repurposed, because it's like, it's a powerful kind of idea, especially at that time when everyone was just like this is like devil worship, and these kids are, it's making them crazy, and blah, blah, blah. It's like Pokemon.
Full circle. Isn't the kid that played Data is he Korean American?
I have no idea.
Because I remember he played Short Round in Temple of Doom, and then was in Goonies, and then now he like has this, like I think he's in the new Loki season, and he's in Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like he has this like, I feel like he disappeared off of the map for a while. Like he was like one of the hottest kid actors. He's not around for a while, and now he's back, and
he's Vietnamese born Chinese American.
Oh, okay, there you go.
So
Vietnamese
born
Chinese. My roommate my roommate through college was first generation American. He was half Vietnamese, half Chinese.
Nice.
Man, I could have made him so bad with all of the "You Lie, Dr. Jones" all through college. Man, I missed out on so many opportunities. Well, so true story. In college, I had one roommate was first generation Chinese, one roommate was first generation Vietnamese, and one roommate was first generation Vietnamese Chinese, and then me. Yeah. And when their family would come visit, we lived together for like 3 years. So like not an insignificant amount of time. And so like they would come over for holidays and stuff like that. I'd hang out. We'd, do all the kind of like stuff for the holidays. I would take them to I'd drive them to casinos. They'd buy us like beer and liquor, even though we were underage. It was awesome. It was great.
Yep.
But anyways, they kept calling me this like one name. I just figured it was like a term of endearment or something like that. And it's like my roommate friends, after about 3 years when I was moving out, I was like, I just got to come clean with you. Like that thing my family was calling you this whole time, it just means white person. They like never knew your name. They've just been calling you, hey, white person for 3 years.
That's perfect.
I was like, yeah, well, I guess that checks out. He's like, yeah, just.
Oh my god! So the guy they're talking about,
very little English.
I have to tell you, the Ki Huy Kwan, the actor we're talking about, that's in. He's also is in Loki, but also Everything Everywhere All at Once would be another thing for right now. But he was also in 1983 in a TV miniseries called The Big Eunuch and the Little Carpenter.
Holy cow!
It's a comedy.
I thought it was a retelling of the Gospel of Matthew.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yes.
I don't know what country this is from. If it's from Vietnam or China, I can't tell. It doesn't have any real information. But yeah, The Big Eunuch and the Little Carpenter. I would pay money to watch that.
I hope that's a translation error and that it's an animated short film.
I hope that's just what it is. So,
all right. Do you have a favorite line from this section?
I do. But what did you? Do you have one that's at the hand? I
loved. This was just so searingly funny. Like, first, I thought the zine on Asian diaspora, Slanted plus Enchanted, is just a diabolical name. But it's on page 216. Sign me up. I could use mentoring. You're funny. The program is called Tell It Slant. Not crazy about that name. It's from Emily Dickinson. Even so.
I do love that. One thing that we didn't talk
Ed is like super sneaky funny. I think, he's super smart, crazy well read, and like such a gentleman. And but he has got a whip smart sense of humor. He's good.
Yeah, absolutely. This is not the line itself is what it is, but it implies it's about one other part that we didn't exactly talk about, but that's I really like. Where one Friday morning with unusual urgency, Tanner asked me to build acronyms that might catch fire, which is like his job of just coming up with acronyms to throw out into the world to see which ones catch on, such as YOLT, You Only Live Twice, and WITAF, what in the actual fuck? And his wife's like, it's a medical miracle. He thinks IAMM, but like those, and he references that comes up in the beginning in that first scene when he's at the party where they keep like remembering his acronyms.
Remember that one? Like,
remember that? Yeah. And like,
you got your job because you can come up with acronyms. Like, oh man.
I love acronyms of this sort in here, even though like whenever people do them, like the kids, I have no idea what they're talking about. I always have to look those up too. That's back to our Urban Dictionary problem, being old. But I love that shows up in here multiple times. It's super fun. But I don't have the schedule open, so I'm not sure how far we go for next week. But it's probably around 60 pages. We will be back on Thursday, and we will cover whatever it is. It'll be in the show notes, so you'll see it. So until then, you can like, review, do all the things that you're supposed to do, recommend it to friends, give us a good 5-star rating. The answer is we go to page 342. Vamp there just long enough to get that. So up to 342. This is a bit longer section. And we'll be back to do that. Subscribe, like, recommend, 5 stars. Anything you want to add, Brian?
Nothing at all. Have a happy new year.
Yeah, I've started to 2024. I do like the recurring joke that I'm seeing of how nobody is saying like 2024 is going to be the year. Thank God 2023 is over. We're going to kill it in 2024 because we've all learned that fucking lesson.
We'll do our next episode. We'll do our year-end lists like everybody does. So,
and resolutions.
Yeah, we'll do film of the year, song of the year, and book of the year, and a resolution.
Speaking of, if you're watching this on Friday, December 29th at 1:50 p.m., you can turn into WXXI in Rochester, and I'll be on there to talk about the year in books for 10 minutes.
All right. I'll check that out.
Yep. We'll see how it goes. Okay, take care, everyone. Have a good New Year's Eve.
Yeah, I'd rather cut off my finger.